and I were looking at the alphabet chart and talking about how each of the pictures' first sound shows what sound the letter makes. Like how the first sound in apple is A. That's the sound A makes. And how the first sound in octopus is A. That's the sound that O makes. And the first sound in sun is S. That's the sound S makes. The first sound of these pictures shows the sound that the letter makes. That's how our alphabet chart helps us. But let's try listening for more than just the first sound in these words. Let's see if we can hear some other sounds. Let's try dog. Dog. I hear a G at the end of dog. G like goat. Let's try another one. Let's stretch out the word nest. Nest. I hear a T at the end of nest, a T like the beginning of turtle. Let's try to stretch another one to hear more sounds. Let's try pig. Pig. I hear a G at the end of pig, just like at the end of dog. Let's try to stretch the word hat. Hat. I hear a T at the end of hat, just like turtle. Let's stretch the word fan. Fan. I hear a N at the end of fan, just like at the beginning of nest. Today we want to teach you that when you write, some words you'll just know in a snap. And some words you have to say slowly so that you can hear all of the sounds and write them down. That way people can read your writing without even needing the pictures. They can just read your letters. What's that, Mabel? There is? Why didn't you tell me sooner? You guys, great news. Mabel let me know that we got a letter. It says, to the kindergarten students. Kindergarten students. That means that this letter is for you guys. Let's open it and see what's inside. It's a letter from Pete the Cat, and he even gave us one of his books. Pete the Cat wants us to help label his book. He said he already started labeling some of the pages, like he labeled himself in the book. He labeled me. But he wants us to add more labels. Can we help Pete the Cat add labels to his book? Let's do it. This is Pete the Cat's Trip to the Supermarket by Kimberly and James Dean. I can see that Pete already labeled himself, me, and these labels are blank. I wonder if he wants us to add letters to those labels. Pete and Bob are hungry after a big day of fun at the park. Dad, can we have a snack? Bob asks. Let's label these cats. We know that this one is Pete because he wrote me. This cat is Bob. Let's sound out what we hear in Bob. B-ob. The first sound I hear is b, like ball. That's the letter B. I'm going to write an uppercase B because all names start with an uppercase letter. B. Ah, like octopus. That's the letter O. Bob. B. Another B. That's B. Look, we labeled Bob. B-ob. Bob. Now we need to label Dad. Let's listen for the sounds in the word dad. Dad. What's the first sound we hear? Dad. Like dog. That's the letter D. Like apple. I know that's an A. Dad. Another D. That's the letter D. We labeled Bob and Dad by listening for all of the sounds in the word. Dad checks the fridge. Dad checks the pantry. Dad checks the secret snack nook. We need to buy groceries, says Dad. It looks like we need to label our friends again. Do you remember the sounds in Bob? B. O. Bob. Another B. We labeled Bob again. We labeled it even faster this time because we remembered. Do we remember all of the sounds in Dad? What's the first sound? D. That's a D like dog. D. A like apple. D. Dad. Another D like dog. We were able to label so much faster that time. Bob, Dad, and Pete the cat labeled himself me. Dad starts to make a list. We need milk and eggs and fish and chicken. I want raspberries, says Bob. I want apples, says Pete. And it looks like we need to label this piece of paper. This piece of paper is called a list. Let's listen for all of the sounds in the word list. What's the first sound in list? Oh, like ladybug. L. Let's listen for the next sound. Igloo. That's an I. List. Like sun. That's an S. Did we get all of the sounds? List. No, the word is list. Which letter makes the t sound at the end of list? Turtle. That's the letter T. List. Pete, Bob, and Dad make a long list and take it to the supermarket. Oh no, the wind blows the list out of Dad's hands. It looks like they want us to label this van. Let's listen for all of the sounds in van. Like volcano, that's the letter V. Like apple, that's the letter A. Van, like nest, that's the letter N. Van. It's cool, says Pete. I remember the list. I do too, says Bob. And it looks like we need to label store. They're at the store. I can tell because this says Meow Food Supermarket. But it looks like Pete the cat still wants us to label store. Let's listen for the sounds in store. S, like sun, that's an S. S, t, 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 like turtle, that's a T. Store, O. Store, r, like a rainbow, that's an R. We listen for all of the sounds in store. Store. First, they stop in aisle 10. The sign says dairy. We need milk, says Pete, and cheese, says Bob, the stinky kind. Next, they go to aisle 9. Yum, says Dad, I love bacon. Don't forget the chicken, says Pete. It looks like we don't need labels on this page because there are already so many labels. Bacon, chicken, meat. They almost pass aisle 8 when Pete remembers eggs. Regular or jumbo, asks Pete. Jumbo, says Dad. Groovy, says Pete. Bob can't pick between spaghetti and macaroni in aisle 7. How about bow ties, asks Dad. Awesome, says Bob. There are labels on this page already too. Macaroni, spaghetti, pasta. Aisle 6 smells fruity. Remember the apples, says Pete. Remember the raspberries, says Bob. And look at all of the labels on these fruits. Oranges, apples, pears, raspberries, cherries, avocados, lemons. In aisle 5, Dad tastes a hot dog. Yummy. In aisle 4, Pete tastes a cupcake. Sweet. Dad lets Pete and Bob choose a treat in aisle 3. Pete picks crackers shaped like fish. Bob picks popcorn. Brr, it's cold in aisle 2. Dad puts mango popsicles in the cart. Aisle 1 has sunflowers, tulips, and blue daisies. Pete and Bob pick tulips for Grandma. She'll love them, says Dad. I think we got everything except the fish, says Dad, but their car is packed with yummy treats. Next time. Great work helping Pete the cat label his book, Pete the Cat's Trip to the Supermarket. He only needed some labels because a lot of the pages already had labels that tell us what's going on in the picture. But we sounded out the words Bob, Dad, list, van, and store. We listened for all of the sounds in the word, stretched them out, and then wrote down the sounds that we heard. We used our alphabet chart when we weren't sure which letter makes that sound. Yesterday, we listened closely to the first sound and the last sound in words like mop, pig, and van. Today, we're gonna listen closely to the sounds in these words and write down the sounds that we hear. Get your writing muscles ready. This is the word map. What's the first sound that you hear in map? Is the first sound that you hear in map. Which letter makes the sound? M like monkey, monkey, map. So I'm gonna write the letter M for map. Let's listen for the next sound. Ah. That's the letter A. Let's listen for the next sound. Map, p. Like pig, that's the letter P. We stretched out the sounds and wrote what we heard. Map. This is the word van. What's the first sound that you hear in van? V is the first sound that you hear in van, like volcano. So we need to write a V for van. Next sound, v, ah. Like apple. Ah, that's an A. What's the last sound that you hear in van? Van. N is the last sound that you hear in van. Like nest. That's the letter N. So we're going to write an N. Van. What's the first sound that you hear in pig? Pig. P is the first sound that you hear in pig. P like pig. Pig, we already know starts with a P, so we'll write the letter P. What's the next sound that you hear in pig? P. I like igloo. I. What's the last sound that you hear in pig? Pig. G is the last sound that you hear in pig. G like goat. That's the letter G. Let's write a G to say G. Pig. What's the first sound that you hear in mop? Mop. Is the first sound that you hear in mop. Like a monkey. That's the letter M. Let's write a letter M to show What's the next sound that you hear in ah? Ah, like octopus. Oh. What's the last sound that you hear in mop? Mop. P is the last sound that we hear in mop. Like pig. That's the letter P. We listened for all of the sounds and then wrote the letter that makes that sound. Mop. Mop. It's time for Fast Phonics. This is the letter T. The letter T says T, like turtle. The name is T. The sound is T. I'm going to write an uppercase and a lowercase t because that's the letter that makes the T sound in turtle. Uppercase T is tall. We go down and then across on top. Uppercase T goes down and then across on top. Lowercase t is tall. We go down and across through it. We go down and across through it. Yesterday we stretched out words that had T in the beginning, words that started with the T sound. But we learned that it's important to hear the sound at the ending too. So let's sound out this word that has the T sound at the end. This is the letter P. It says P like pig. This is the letter A. It says ah like apple. This is the letter T. It says T like turtle. Let's say the sounds. P, A, T. Now let's put them together slowly. Pat. Now let's say the word. Pat. This is the word pat. Let's try another word with the T sound at the end. This is the letter M. It says like a monkey. This is the letter A. It says ah like apple. This is the letter T. It says T like turtle. Let's say the sounds. A, T. Now let's put them together slowly. Mat. Now let's say the word. Mat. This is the letter S. It says like sun. This is the letter I. It says I like igloo. This is the letter T. It says T like turtle. Let's say the sounds. S, I, T. Now let's say them together slowly. Sit. Now let's say the word. Sit. This is the word like. Let's read it, write it, and spell it. First, let's read it together. Like. Read it with me one more time. like. Now let's spell it. L-I-K-E, like. Let's spell it one more time. L-I-K-E, like. Now let's write the word like. The word like starts with a tall L. Tall L starts at the top and goes down. Then it's a small I. I goes down with a little dot on top. Then a tall K. We go down and then in and out. And then a small E. Small E goes across and around. Like. That like is the word that we use when we feel good about something. Let's read a news story that has our word like in it. This story is called I Like Sam. Sam can pat the cap. Sam can pat the ball. Sam can tap the drum. Sam can tap the nut. I like Sam. Today we learned that when you're writing, there are some words that you'll know how to spell in a snap, like our words I and can. You know them so well, you can spell them super fast. But there are some words that you need to listen for all of the sounds. We say the sounds slowly so that we can hear the first sound and all of the other sounds in the word. Then we can write down the sounds that we hear so someone can read our writing.